Love it.
All right, it should be up here. All right, it
Yes, I
should
see
be up
us.
here.
Here we are.
All right,
Yes,
it
hi,
should
everybody.
be up
Us.
here.
Here
Hey
we are.
everyone.
See us.
Hey
Here we are.
everyone.
A little bit of an echo. I'm just checking.
Hey everyone.
A little bit of an echo. I'm just checking.
Sometimes we can't hear. Sometimes there's an echo. You never know.
Right, exactly.
All right. So are we good? Can we go?
Yes, I believe
Okay.
we
are good.
So Tammy, we have Tammy Van Hollander here today, and I'm excited because I just love talking with Tammy anyway. So the opportunity for us to chat for an hour is fun, no matter what. But then on top of it, I have really enjoyed and appreciated watching your journey of a very thoughtful, intentional evaluation and experience of portions of digital play therapy. And the reason why I've enjoyed it so much is because it's been so thoughtful and intentional. You teach, you have so much experience, you've created your greatness cards and greatness sticks, and you've written so many things. I mean, you're just very well-rounded and educated and experienced. And so I appreciate you applying what you understand and recognizing the importance of the work that we do, and then evaluating something that was relatively new to you and saying, what's the value in this, and how can I, being you, evaluate that in a way that's congruent with how I work with people. And then on top of it, once you were in that journey, and then sharing so many examples and excitement of this happened and all of that. So that's a big part of what I hope we're going to talk about today. Certainly, if you have other things you want to chat about, I'm really open to that. But first and foremost, I kind of did a little bit of it. But first and foremost, I'd love for you to share with the audience who you are, what your passions are, and so those who are not familiar with you can seek you out, and those who are will be like, cheering you on from the sidelines.
Okay. Well, Jess, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me and just for that beautiful intro, because it means the world to me for you to recognize how important this work that you're doing is, and how much it means to me and to my clients, and that this isn't just fun and games, and that there is so much therapeutic value to it. And the fact that you recognize that I feel that therapeutic value too, and how important your work is, just means so much to me. So first and foremost that, and I'll rave about you through the next hour. So, but first we'll talk about me. So I have a private practice in Philadelphia, and I'm a registered play therapy supervisor. My passion is the world of sand tray, play therapy, attachment work. As an advanced nurtured heart approach trainer, I really began what you talked about, Jess, is just developing like the greatness sticks and the greatness cards, and had no idea how big they would become. But then really so much part of my work was really in terms of just resiliency, right? And just recognizing how amazing these kids are, and that so much energy is focused on the negativity. And especially when we're talking about video games in the digital world, that there's just so much negative energy that is going into children's safe places, and then going in and creating and seeking mastery, and being able to now embrace that and embrace that part of their world has been beautiful, because now I'm able to also help parents to recognize the benefits of the digital play therapy, and how that they can understand their children through a different lens, just like we work all the time of how are they understanding their children through the world of play, right? It's that same piece of it. So I really have found just this so powerful because of that. So when you invited me, I was so excited because I just, as you know, I have a lot of passion. I get very excited. I have my own YouTube channel, and you guys can find me on Mainline Play Therapy or Instagram. But it's really about my excitement and my passion. And when I get excited about something, which Jess knows well, and many of you who know me, that like I just want to shout it from the rooftops because I just get excited, and when I believe in something, I just want other people to know about it. So
Absolutely. And Michael, I could almost hear you saying when she was talking a couple of minutes ago that it's just another tool. We talk about having that tattooed on our forehead, you know, that the fundamental components of the work that we do, that's what goes into this. It just happens to be of a digital nature. And that opens a whole bunch of other worlds and possibilities, but fundamentally, it's play.
fundamentally, it's play. And the question in terms of my journey is, Jess, I know you, I've followed you, and how many years ago, right? In England, you put that headset on me, and I met Bogo, this monster that like I left, Jackie Flynn talks a lot about, right? Or in general, like your automatic nervous system being left like in the sand tray and left in the VR. And like I left a part of me, I feel like in there with Bogo, that it had such a powerful effect of me, this animal, that in the digital world, I couldn't even believe it. And the whole immersive experience, I was like, wow, like this isn't what I thought it was. This isn't a video game. This is so much more. So after that, I had been thinking about it and thinking about it. And it's been on my list to do your training. And it's scary to try something new. And I'm like, I'm not going to be able to do it. And it's going to be so complicated. And Jess, you had such a way of explaining it to us and giving us so much evidence-based information in terms of why this works and really navigating us through it all. So through taking your training, through then doing it even personally, right? And it's working out together and doing supernatural. And so that had a whole different thing that like all of a sudden Oculus is part of my life. Like I'm working out now, like no longer like I throw out the Peloton. Hopefully I won't get in trouble on this. The Peloton's still in the basement with cobwebs, but like the idea of immersively going to all these different places in the world and getting my own brain break and workout has been amazing. But I think, the thing that has been what I have so appreciated, Jess, and I know you don't have time to do this for the world and probably don't have time to do it for me, but you do it, is this idea that Jess has been my VR coach. And I have literally called Jess with my clients in session, and they're like, call your VR coach, and helping us through it. But I have found so much of my clients helping me navigate and being the teacher and even navigating. And we could talk about, I mean, I have story after story, right, in terms of these pieces, but it just reminds me just so recently that I had a father and son come in, and the child who has a lot of anxiety about being in the city and being in unsafe areas. We've been doing the King Spray graffiti. And what does it feel like, right? Being in these areas and actually creating in graffiti what feels safe to him. And he was able to go from the rooftop to all the different spaces and to feel it in his body. What parts of his body were feeling activated? What does he need to do to feel safe? But then he created half of a picture, and then he put dad in the headset, and he was able to completely like navigate with such mastery and such confidence in this spot that would be absolutely paralyzing for him, to be the leader and to show dad what to do. And together they just created this amazing masterpiece of safety symbols, of love and flowers and even nature within this pretty scary space within the city. So that was just so cool of bringing families into it, and that connection that they were able to create it together, and him being able to be outside of the headset to do it was like so amazing to watch.
And then you can also take pictures and provide them for them so that they can remember it. They can have a somewhat of a transitional object, but also I want to say symbolic, but it's not. It's literal, like you have the picture, but it's a record of all of that work that they did together and the connection of it. And hopefully, when they look at that, that can elicit the positive and maybe even other aspects of that experience for them. But the fact that they did it together and all of that, and I think to me, one of the things that you're speaking to as well, specifically, certainly pieces of this family, but on top of it, I think it's people are all different, and you know, Captain Obvious over here, but we're all different, and we have overall we have different ways of how we express ourselves and different ways that feel comfortable and congruent with who we are. And then in particular situations, we have ways that we would prefer to communicate. And that's one of the things that to me is so powerful about all this is that it's not an either or, it's an and. To have the traditional play therapy materials available and the digital materials available allow for the client to, just in general, but then also per situation and per scenario, to choose something that fits for them to be able to express or communicate or process or whatever it might be at that time. And when we're talking about things of a digital play therapy nature, once you open that door into this world, you start to realize how many possibilities are out there. I remember you reaching out and saying, is there this type of game? Is there that type of game? And people do that quite often with me. It'll message me in some way and say, do you know of a game that has this or that? And sometimes I know the answer and sometimes I research the answer. And even sometimes when I research the answer, I'm like, oh my gosh, 16 things just came up under that. And I didn't even know that was a thing. How amazing. And to have those options. And then you have other spaces that you can customize for yourself to create. And that can be the flip side of it, is that maybe they don't want it to be something that's prescribed or predetermined, but that they want to create that for themselves and that they can, and then save it and go back and work on it later or whatever that is. So that's a big part of what gets me so excited in this realm, is there's just so many possibilities.
Yeah. And I love the idea of, like, when I have put parents in the headset to really experience it and to really recognize the power of it. I think it's really hard if parents have not experienced VR and they're not in the headset. So I'll often bring them in when we're casting it and we're going through it and the parent is present with them navigating through it, but really for them to be in it. And I have had clients, I've put clients, parents in it doing mindfulness apps or the color zen while I'm in session in the playroom with the child, just experiencing it. And yeah, it's just another tool. It's something for the waiting room and setting them up. And it's just like their reset with such gratitude of, like, yeah, it's here for you, and showing them how to use it, which is also pretty cool. So I've actually had parents in the waiting room doing specific apps in the VR so they can just get more used to it and be able to even incorporate some mindfulness or whatever they need in that.
Absolutely. I remember I had said, so people who listen, most people would know this, but so with the virtual sand tray, once we had the iOS, the 2D version for iPad and iPhone and all that kind of stuff, I started to, I'd known about virtual reality, but I started to do more research into it. I started to kind of like the process I had when I was thinking about digital tools in general many years ago. I was evaluating, like we were talking about earlier, evaluating what I thought the therapeutic value might be, and what really is the foundation to all of this, and trying to figure that out, so that I could responsibly and ethically incorporate things into my practice. And then I started to go down the rabbit hole in that way with virtual reality. And so at some point I said to my husband, who's the programmer, we really need to put this in virtual reality. There are so many components of this that are important in mental health, with immersion and embodiment and all those kinds of things. So I had learned about it. I had heard about it. I had watched videos. I had done all these things, but I'd never actually been in a headset.
Mm.
And so then there was a point where it was time for me to get into the headset. And in my head, even knowing all I knew, acknowledging and recognizing and defining value and all of these things, none of that prepared me for the experience of actually being in the headset. And like I put it on, and the hair on my arms just stood up, and it's just so amazingly powerful. And I'd love to hear your opinion on this from your journey too, and yours as well, Michael, because I put in the chat that you need to speak up and join. Don't just let us take over the whole conversation, but because we will. But that that multi-sensory experience, and what your brain does with that, to say you are in this environment, you are interacting with Bogo is interacting with you. I've said the example on this stream before of somebody in the class, one of the VR classes, who I could see on screen took off his controllers to put it on a shelf because the shelf was in VR, but it wasn't actually there. And then he was laughing at himself for that. But to me, that was just so indicative of the power in the mind of being in this environment and how you are experiencing that. So what are your thoughts on that portion of it?
Michael, can we hear you first? I'd love for you.
I was enjoying the conversation that you guys had. It's just beautiful to listen to. But I think combining, and especially some of the stuff that I'm listening to Tammy present this year, and writing down some of the things that she was saying was, I think, so crucial. Applying it to digital play, especially in a huge piece of resiliency and self-talk, and it was the aspect of what you were saying, that some emotions can be very intense, but also looking at, even though they are very intense and can have just really immense experiences with it, there are also positives in there, and how to reframe it. And looking at I always think back to a lot of communities that do like the massive multi online role playing game genre, MMORPGs. There is a lot of trial and error when you are fighting a dragon for the first time. It's like there is so many things where it's just constantly pulling and learning new information, and fighting it and losing, fighting and losing, fighting and losing. And it's so natural to have that kind of mindset sink in of like, I can't do this, we can't beat this, let's give up. But kind of like what you were saying is like, change that mindset and start looking at every little thing that you learn, even in those intense experiences. There's positive experiences, there's learning experiences in there. And just hearing you kind of talk about reframing some of those feelings and thoughts into more productive things, that I think is huge when it comes to digital play. And with using the VR and the BOGO aspect, kind of tying it, is I think what's really cool about the first time when you get into VR is just that, like you said, full body experience, to where I can control my environment. And if we think about, just children in general, mainly a lot of them because they're just young in general, but also, experience that they have, or circumstances, context, whichever environment, they don't have a lot of control. And VR allows them to have control over their environment. And so when you think about, someone who may be feeling like I'm not worthy of love, or, I can't do anything right to receive love, which a lot of children experience, especially, in broken households and stuff like that. BOGO's amazing for that. Here you have this thing where you actually get to interact and have this, kind of positive relationship bouncing off one another. And, even if you don't do the right thing, BOGO is very gentle to show you, a clue as to something else. And then you start to really feel like, wow, I am affecting something else. I am causing positive change and love. I am worthy. I can do this. Like, just to look at, those kind of changes. And like Jess said, it's hard for people to look at this from an outside perspective and think like, what? Because I think we've all had that experience when you first look at VR, like, oh, come on. But then when you like watch these videos of people who are like walking the plank and all of a sudden they're diving at their TV and people are like, there's no way. You got to know that like you're in a headset game, blah blah blah, and it's like you get so immersed in it that you don't know that it is just a game.
That's so true. It reminds me, it's the same what we talk about with sand tray, right? That you have to experience it. Stuart Brown, he wrote the book Play. He did all this research. Do you know Stuart Brown's work? I'm sure you know Stuart Brown's work. But he used an analogy that, play, and I think of it like sand tray and like digital play therapy. It's like sitting down at a table and there's pictures of your whole Thanksgiving meal. So you can look at it, but you're not fully, you can't like sense it and you're not immersed in it and the whole feeling of it. But like it's such an immersive experience. I mean, it's funny. I just got back from Arkansas and I've been traveling with my VR and I had everybody in it, and it's like to see, and Jess, I think that's probably so much of your excitement that you see all the time is you get to see all these firsts. Like you get to experience the first time someone was in the VR and what that's like. And that has been one of my favorite things now in terms of being able to introduce this. I'm like, you really like, you guys have to experience this. You have no idea until you go in, and that like breathtaking like moment, right, where you are just like speechless and blown away, and to watch others and to feel that energy and that excitement is like so cool. Like what a cool thing to be able to just like experience, to give it to others and to watch. I mean, there's so many beneficial value of it, but just like that part for me and being able to introduce it to others, clinicians as well as friends, has been, and family, has been so cool to be able to see. I was just also thinking, Michael, about like that mastering control with these kids. I mean, I have one little girl, I have a couple kids who I'm doing with kids with autism, and the colors in is, those of you who don't know, color space it's called, and it's a whole black and white world, and you color it, and as you color it, it comes to life. And as she did it, she just said, I've never felt so in control. And I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
Right? Like her world, everything in her world is out of control. Everybody's so much pressure. Everything is so hard. And to be able to control the color and things coming alive, and she's completely in control in her world, is just beautiful. Like how often, I mean, part of the play experience in the playroom is to have that, but that immersive experience of it truly like coming to life within the VR was just such a powerful moment for her and for me within that session.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say the flip side of that coin of the control and mastery, which, is a whole portion, a whole section of the course. So clearly it's really an important part. But I think the flip side of that is there are times when, and I think fundamentally you have control because you can take the headset off.
Mm-hmm.
You can pause, like, so on a really fundamental level, you have that control for sure. But even within the programs, in the times when you don't have control, when maybe you feel like you are frustrated because you can't climb that mountain or do that thing or attach whatever it is that the goal and the quest is. It provides for us, and this is in VR, and this is also in other 2D experiences, that it provides for us clinicians a beautiful opportunity to help them work through that.
Mm-hmm.
How do we critically think? How do we ask for help? How do we even acknowledge what it is that we need?
Yeah.
And then how do we seek that? What are the resources that are available to us? There are so many pieces of that. So some people ask, like I'm sure we've all been asked or had the comment made by parents of saying something in the realm of, oh, well, you know, they're on the, especially during COVID, they're on the screen for school and they're on the screen for this and they're on the screen for church and they're on the screen, you know, for all these things. And now you want them to be on the screen in therapy as well. And it's like, one, I totally hear what you're saying. There's a lot of this happening in your child's life, and I do not discount that. It is important, and I think that's a path to try to find some balance in that. So let's have that conversation. But as far as the actual therapy portion goes, if particularly if that child is a person who does have a part of their life that includes involvement in video games or in digital worlds, then even more important that we understand that. We understand the importance for them. We understand where they might get hung up. We understand how they approach tasks. All the things I just said and the resources and the critical thinking, like strategy, a lot of the things that I won't even say all of the things that we would seek in information about in other ways. That's what we're going to be doing in this interaction. And if there are portions of that that are out of balance, that gives us the information to try to help with that instead of not really understanding what all that is and saying, well, that's bad. And so, you know, XYZ. So I think there's two sides that control and mastery. And the other side is that we can have amazing opportunities to assist them in these arenas, which I have seen over and over and over again generalize out into the other parts of their life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could think of so many of those, but just in general, like the other day, another child I had with autism, she was in the headset and somehow something was pushed and it went into first steps. And first steps is, those of you who don't know, it's like kind of the beginning of like teaching you Oculus, but you're like kind of thrown into like this Disney World type of thing. And everything got super loud. And she froze and she said, it's so loud, it's so loud. And we took a deep breath. And I said, you have a choice. You could turn it off, but let me touch your hand and show you again where the volume is. And now you have the control of making it louder or making it, you know, making it quieter. And she was able, like she went into that panic and she stopped, she took a breath, she kept the headset on, she tolerated it, although she always has a choice to take it off, and then was able to have that control over the volume. So she was able to reset herself to be able to go right back into Vacation Simulator, which I am learning so much. I mean, you taught me so much on it, even though I still couldn't really figure it out until like these kids in the Vacation Simulator of really the different tasks of doing yoga on the beach to, you know, that the catching of the butterflies, you know, this catching of the butterflies that you have to be so still and so focused to like be able for that piece of it. And then there's actually the ball part, right, where you're throwing the ball back and forth, and that relationship back and piece, right? Talk about like just all these different pieces all within the vacation island that I just loved. So many different, just so many different pieces that just become so powerful for these kids within here. And they're teaching me so much.
Oh, absolutely. They teach me stuff all the time. I learned so much from them. And so it could be like, oh, but you know, aren't you the whatever, the expert, the therapist, you know, the whatever, and you should know all these things. And I don't think that's true. One, I don't even think that's possible, because you're not going to know everything about everything. No one's going to know everything about everything. And so to me, it's, if you have vetted the program, the tool, whatever it is, and you have determined that there's therapeutic value, then the exploration of the components of that, the further, the more intricate details, the more nuances, that can be discovered together. That can be something that they show you, and how important it is when they show you, because now they're also showing you what they know, and they're able to be in that mastery position potentially. We learn a lot about how someone teaches someone else too. That is because as those of us who teach and present know, it's one thing to know it for yourself, and it's another way to be able to present it to someone else so that they can then understand it and explore it. So all of that is teaching us so much about our client, even when it is them showing us or us exploring it together. As long as you have determined that there is therapeutic value for it to continue to be part of your process and your work. Sometimes we will vet it in advance. We therapists will vet it in advance, and we will bring it into the session and say, oh, I would love for us to try this today, or have it be available if you're on the more non-directive portion of the spectrum, then have it available, but you're going to have particular programs available because you vetted them. The other is when a client brings something into us and says, I really like, there's a game called Township Tale. I didn't even know about Township Tale until one of my clients said, I really want to play this with you. It's a multiplayer game. So that person's in another state. So we are not in the same physical space. And I'm in my headset and they're in their headset. And our characters are interacting and working on things together and handing things to each other and all of that. And it's really powerful. But he brought that in. I engaged with him to learn about the program through his eyes and what that meant, and then behind the scenes researched it to decide whether or not I felt that was an appropriate thing for us to continue to have as part of our available repertoire, and it was, and I was really happy for that. And there might be other times when maybe you need to hang back and see what the value is. Like I give an example about Arizona Sunshine. First person shooter zombie games, not really what comes to mind first thing when I think of what I'm going to have in my play therapy session. I'm not saying there's not entertainment value and whatnot for some people, but it just wouldn't have been. So when my client brought in wanting to play that, I had some hesitance. So initially I was like, okay, so what is the game? Let's not make some assumptions, telling to myself, let's not make assumptions because it's zombies and it's first person shooter. Okay, let's not do that. Let's think this through, learned more about the game, and then really spearheaded learning what it meant to this client. And it just smacked me over like a ton of bricks because I wasn't in the game yet. I was watching the play of the game and on a screen. And when I started to hear his verbalizations, and it was, I am all alone. He was up on a VW bus and the zombies were coming at him. And he was saying all these things that basically paralleled how he feels in his family. And he's asking me to join and help him. It doesn't matter that it was first person shooters and it was zombies. My client who is saying, I have all of these things going on in my family, and this is how I'm feeling in my family, and I am asking you to join and help me, I'm going to join and help. Not very well, because I'm not very good at those things. But it was really, really powerful. And at first, I had the attitude. Right? I was just like, okay, calm yourself down, figure out this, think it through. And when I did, it really hit me. And think of the opportunity I would have missed if I'd said, you know what, let's play something else.
Wow. I mean, that's such an important piece, Jess, that you talk about, that we know that kids are drawn to certain things for a reason, right? Whatever that TV show is, that character, these pieces, there is a reason why they are drawn to that. So being able to embrace that or to support that in other way, they are working through it. I was just, so many different ones, but on the job simulator and the chef one, and I have this kid that's really very much perfectionist and was getting really stressed with the cooking one, doing everything right. And there's so many benefits of it, right? Of what you talk about, right? The multi-sequential tasks and being able to finish each task. And she was getting stressed and making sure everything was perfect. And I said, you know what? Let's do the opposite. Like, don't finish a task. Like, let's break some eggs. Let's just throw things and just make a big mess. And I see that being done in the convenience store one a lot. And she's like, well, what do you mean? Then I'm not going to finish a task. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, and I'm going to make a big mess. And I'm like, yeah. And who's going to clean it up? And she's like, oh, no one's going to clean it up. And I'm like, yeah. And so this idea of just for a perfectionistic kid, right, to go in and just make a shit show. We have to be careful. I don't know if we have to be careful with language here.
No,
But we don't. But literally of just like trashing the place. And I've done that in the job simulator of just trashing it. And it felt so good for her to have permission to make this mess. And I think I told you about another one of my kids with diagnosed with OCD, and he went there and every single task he just made a mess and destroyed it and didn't do anything. But he normally would not touch other things in the playroom. He would start with certain things on the ground and then he would never clean them up. And he went into the headset and he didn't do any of the structure, and he just trashed everything. And then he gets out of the headset without being prompted and he cleaned up everything. Jess, I remember like texting you because I was so blown away. And then he left. And I was like, whoa. And then another time, this child who, would never sit on my floor due to the floor being dirty, contamination pieces, he went in to do the National Geographic, right? Like kayaking with the penguins. And he was on the floor and we were able to pause the game, take off the headset and just do that like as an exposure as well. And then for him to go back in. And since then, we've been able to play on the floor without the Oculus. It was just like, he just needed that. Right. So, I mean, I have story after story in terms of just how powerful it's really been within as part of my practice.
I think I was going to add what Jess is about to say, but I think you segued right perfectly into it, Tammy, where someone in the chat had been saying that she loves within VR that children often worry so much about making mistakes and taking chances because they fear the repercussions or responses of parents or adults in the real world. VR and video games in general allow them the opportunity to make those mistakes and take the chances in order to learn and experience new things and build confidence. And I think that that's so true because, obviously it's kind of like this underlying thing, it's like as a kid, it's like, oh yeah, make mistakes. It's totally okay. But then you're like, okay. And then you make a mistake, not on purpose, obviously, but just happened. And then all of a sudden you're just like, someone in your life is vilifying you for it, and that's just I think the portion where it's like,
sorry guys. I think
oh, no, it's okay.
I accidentally went in.
You just have to mute it.
There's a mute or a pause. In the lower left of the screen.
The lower left. I'm trying to actually get out of it, guys, because
oh, you could just close the tab probably.
Yeah, or you can just close the tab. There you go. Oh no.
No one's still in. Hold on. Oh, things were going so smoothly, weren't they? Things were going so smoothly, weren't they?
If you see the purple, like the digital play therapy in our 3 heads over there by
I'm out.
Okay, perfect.
I was
Uh,
curious about the chats. I'm
oh
gonna
no
say
no
right
no,
here.
we're just reading it out loud for you, but
Yeah.
that was the comment, you know, and I think that that's so true because yeah, like in using Tammy's example where you know they wanted to go in there and you know the perfect child, you know, we hold these like perfect expectations for things to strive to, but kids take that obviously because they're still developing so literal. And you know, oh, I need to have everything needs to be perfect, I need to be perfect, and it's like no, we're human, you know, we're not going to be perfect. You know, nothing is perfect, you know. I always used to say like if we were perfect we'd robots, but now I'm even questioning that, you know, when you see some of these like robots that they're trying to, you know, do some works in factories and they're like chucking boxes all over the place and everything. And so you know, I even question that, you know. So I think it's good just for them to be able to have the VR because, like you said, they're not affecting anything physically in front of them. They're not making a huge mess. They're not hurting anything. And yet they are learning so much about what if I go against what is, you know, against the rules or what will happen? What does that look like? You know, what do I feel about it? And I think that, it's such a very interesting, you know, concept to think that a headset can provide so many situations like that.
Yeah.
Even in Supernatural. So for me, I tend to be competitive and perfectionistic in things. And so when I first got into Supernatural, for people who don't know what that is, it's a exercise fitness program through Oculus, or Meta, uh, and you're at the end of it you have scores that you can get, power score and accuracy score. And I noticed in myself my internal response when I would not get 100% of accuracy. And that there were times historically that I would actually stop a workout and start it again if I made one mistake. Tells you guys a lot about me. But what has been really powerful is my ability to walk myself through that and to talk myself through that and to say, okay, what is really the goal of doing this exercise? The goal of doing this exercise is to exercise.
Right.
It is to move my body, to strengthen, to loosen, to stretch, to all these kinds of things. And be able to get to the point where I no longer start a program over. I still strive toward, but if there is something that leads me to not getting the 100%, whether I'm making a mistake or sometimes, I don't know, my right controller, the bat, like it bounces the balloon away instead of slicing it. And you can hear the like balloon bounce noise. And I'm
It's
just
the
like, oh,
worst. I hate that.
there went that point, or, you know, whatever. But I've watched a growth in myself in being able to tolerate not seeing the 100% and to focus on what's important fundamentally, which is the movement, the exercise and whatnot. So in giving that example, my purpose is that I am a person who, like many therapists, you know, is analyzing things and trying to figure things out. I mean, that's what we do. And so even in this, I'm doing that for myself. Think of how many examples we've seen in our clients of those kinds of things that are the ways they either go about life, handle things, cope with things, coping skills and styles, interactional skills and styles, the frustration tolerance, the strategic abilities, the perfectionism or not, the persistence. Do they stick with something? Do they give up and go a different direction? How are all those things showing up in their day-to-day life? And where are maybe some difficulties arising because of that? If you fall through my example, and I just made it a personal one because then I can talk about it without worrying about confidentiality, because I have some clients and quite a few clients who fit in that too, is to say, okay, so where else does that show up in my life? If I'm working on a big project or even a small project or something, to abandon the whole thing and start all over again, sometimes that's necessary, but a lot of times it's not. It would be a hindrance to getting it done on time, or maybe even being able to expand in a different direction, because sometimes mistakes that are made end up being fantastic. It's like, oh, I didn't intend for it to be that, but wow, look what happened out of it. And if you are a person who abandons and doesn't allow for that to happen, you're never going to have those experiences. So this is just one tiny itty bitty little example, but it showed up so much in my supernatural play. And I was like, oh, there it is. Okay, that's clearly something I need to work on. And it's been a process. But I think that's the kind of stuff we can seek out, whether it's in VR or even like in Animal Crossing. One of the things I noticed in Animal Crossing, particularly started playing that at the beginning of the pandemic, because it launched right then. I mean, it was just, remember that, Michael? Because you had it on pre-order, I had it on pre-order. And then it arrived like right when everything went to crap. And so what I noticed was the parallel between what my island looked like and my life. Because what my life felt like was a whole lot of stuff all over the place, is how it felt. The transition clinically really wasn't that difficult for me because I was already comfortable and familiar with digital things. And so it actually was quite smooth, and I'm still operating that way. I didn't lose a single client. Like, I had a really positive experience in my business, but my personal life, my kids at home, having to find school for them, having to rearrange, my oldest son couldn't do his graduation. Like, there were so many things happening that it felt like there were pieces of things all over the place, and I had to figure out what to do with them. That's exactly what my Animal Crossing island looked like. It was a perfect reflection. And I went, wow, that's really powerful. I wonder how that shows up for clients. So one of the things I'm asking people to think about, and wonder what you guys think about that too, is not only what we notice in our clients, but also what we notice in ourselves. And then how might that show up for other people too? Like you were saying earlier in the beginning of all of this, Tammy, when you were talking about your experience with BOGO.
Yeah. I mean, I think in so many things, even doing the fishing one, which I find really, really hard. And like I struggle with my attention span and these different and impulsivity, and being able, I'm like, wow, I'm really training my brain. Like, I'm getting better at it. But I was first like ready to just give up on it, and the frustration of those pieces. And like mindfulness, although I teach on it, it's often hard for me to do. And being able to go into trip and to do it. And I still wish I was as doing that as often as I was doing supernatural, right? And those pieces of it. But I am definitely finding so much therapeutic value in it for myself. And I think, a part of the supernatural, which there has been so much therapeutic value, but when we can, and I know it's been hard and I've had different injuries, but how great is it when we're able to create a party and that we're all together? So to be able to work out with friends and to hear your voice and to be working out together is just like, where else can you do that? And, working out is often not so fun and not a fun thing to do. And I could be like exhausted at night, but knowing that I'm going to escape and be in like how many different worlds, or different countries, is like so cool. And I'm going to be on the moon, and it's breathtaking. And every time I come out of there, it's not so much the workout, I think, and even my whole body being energized. I really believe it's my brain just being all lit up and like all good stuff, like all that juicy oxytocin is going through my body, and like that cortisol, that stress, hormone is just literally completely released. When I get out of there, it's just like I'm just filled with oxytocin and like feel so good, and my mind is clear. And that doesn't happen to me often. There's not a lot of examples I can really give of really do. I can when I do a sand tray. If I create my own sand tray and do that, I'll have that clarity right there that I feel, absolutely throughout my body. But I would say that, and also just really doing that in the VR is pretty amazing that I feel like everybody should have the opportunity to feel and to experience, because I'm so grateful to that.
One of the things that when you said everybody should have the opportunity, it brings me back to what we were talking about earlier about putting parents
Mm-hmm.
in the headset and how important that is. I do the same thing when I have had clients in my physical office. I've brought the parent in, certainly talking to my client about it, like all of that conversation having happened, and them giving assent to their parent coming in and whatnot. But for both the parent to watch the casting of what the child is doing in the headset, but then also putting the parent in the headset themselves and
Yeah.
having them experience that. I've had families do family sessions. I'm thinking of one in particular where this family is pretty fragmented, and I've had them first. I did it with them, but then basically gave them homework to do it together, is to play Akron together. And I know, Tammy, you and I have played Akron. Have you played that, Michael?
No, I haven't played it, but I know I've seen it.
Yeah,
That's a stressful one for me. I still haven't figured out my mastery. Like, that's again my own perfectionism. Like, I'm not good at it and I want to keep trying, but I got a little better at the end last time.
Yep, and luckily the rounds are pretty quick, so that you can keep trying different things in there. But one of the things I like in family is that it's really interesting to see how the family members respond to each other when the headset switches to other people being the tree. So one person's in the headset of the tree. I'm so sorry, I need a cough button. I guess I could have pushed my mute, I'm sorry. But one person's in the headset as the tree, and then everybody else joins on a 2D device as a squirrel. And so the family dynamics that shift depending on who's the tree and how the squirrels are coming together is really fascinating. And so we did it together as a family, like myself and the family. And then I gave them some things to look for, to try out. And then I spoke with each individual family member and I said, okay, try this, or notice what happens when this happens, or, gave them some individual ideas of things to do or to understand. And it has really brought them together in a way that was not happening before, and understandings about each other. And, that's a game with a tree and some squirrels. Like,
Yeah.
but it has so
It's
Let's
much
note that
value
Dr.
to it.
Jessica Stone is a very vicious tree. You all may think that she's sweet and this good-hearted person, but get her the tree and she will smush you.
I just admitted to being perfectionistic and competitive.
Wow. Maybe I'll be better if I play with somebody who's not, if Jessica's not the tree. Michael, if you become the tree, maybe I'll try. But there's no mercy when it comes to just being that tree.
I mean, you're supposed to.
it's
well, you're good at it.
I was gonna say, just hearing you talk about the family dynamics, just more of a small personal thing recently is my brother. I have an older brother, my mom, and then I have an older cousin that's older than my older brother, and we see each other every so often, but Pokemon Go is something that actually brings us all together, and like I haven't played it in 3 or 4 years or something like that. It's been a while. And more recently, like my mom is, my mom played the entire time. It's crazy. But she got to, the basically the previous max level. And so now like we will sit there and that's kind of like our thing that we do together. And instead of feeling like, oh, well, I'm holding people back, or, like my mom will say, well, I don't really know how to do like the raid battles. I'm not sure. And my brother and I will sit there and like teach her. And now she's like doing it on her own. And like the small ones, to be able to progress. And then we, come together and do something together. Ashley will join us, and, kind of just this idea that to think that this free app on a phone is bringing, like family together, and in a way in which you're not going to have, the best Pokemon, because like you said, you can't catch all the phrase is catch them all. You can't catch all the perfect ones because they're super rare and they can run. There's so many factors, but together you can actually accomplish things. And I love that message for families in general. We're not always going to be perfect in every situation. Someone's going to have better stuff for a specific Pokemon that you're battling, and next week the other person's going to have something. But as long as you show up and as long as you're there, you matter. And you are going to contribute to the overall goal to be able to, accomplish something together. And I think that that's so, just beautiful to think about, that everyone has a role to play despite where they may be strong or weak, or wherever they are, as long as they show up and they're there, they matter.
I love how you said that, Michael. I love everything about that. But, it makes me think about just working with families or in play therapy, and this idea of, bringing like just safe psychological distance to the problems and not being so much in reality. And you were able to be within this play and all working together and having different roles, and nothing else, no other things like mattered within that moment, right?
Yep.
Like who's going to come to that family dinner, or, so and so, the drama that happened with them and their partner, just any of that stuff. You are all together and nothing else matters. That's like that mindfulness moment. You're in the here and now, and that's the power of play, and that's the power of this work. So to be able to bring families in and to do this without thinking about all the other outside drama, right? All the other stressors is just so cool and so beautiful, that it resets you, that you're all in the moment with the same task in mind, working together, which is just so beautiful.
I am so sad that our time is over.
Wow, I had no idea.
It goes by so fast.
But we'll see each other in a couple weeks.
Yes.
In person.
Oh, Michael, you'll be there. Oh, I'm so glad.
Yep.
Awesome. We will definitely see you
Okay.
in a couple of weeks. And if you are willing, you don't have to answer now, but we would love to have you come back,
Of
because
course.
I'm thinking of all these things I still want to talk to you about and ask you about, and now there's no time. So
My goodness, anytime. This was such a treat. I loved this.
Thank you.
Love being with both of you. Thank you for
coming.
having me.
we appreciate you being here. For everybody else, we will see you in 2 weeks, and we will post this. Michael will post this on YouTube. So if you have links and anything that you want him to put on there for people to find you, and link to your greatness cards and greatness sticks, like all of that stuff, please send it to me or to Michael, and then we will put